Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 389. I am your host, Loren Gray. And yes, we did have a slight delay to our start. Strangely enough, the time clock for our broadcast platform reset the scheduled show, to 6:30 a.m. So it showed as being canceled. And so I had to go back in, try to change it, edit which ended up being created, make the new link, go back to the link that we share with everybody so they can be a part of it. Long story short, for those that did join us on our hdm.news/TV show, my apologies for the latency and the error that says the show already broadcast. That is back on. For those of us watching on social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and Twitch, thank you so much for being patient while we came live. Thank you. No, I was good. I was fine. Sorry, getting comments from the chat section as we move forward. So with that, we want to dive into today's topic and get right to the point of the conversation, since we did start a little later than we anticipated. I want to get right back to the idea of our discussion today, the core of our live show, which is always broadcast on Roku, Google, Amazon, and Apple TV. Look for the Hospitality channel so you can see my bright and cheery face on your TV station. If, of course, as I mentioned, on social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, along with Twitch. For those that use gaming consoles for their media, you can watch us on all of those platforms as well. So topic today is becoming more and more relevant as we move into 2023, and that is GA4. As I was reminded by some of my friends that I was talking about some of the topic discussion today, GA4 has actually been in discussion, or has been for people to be aware of, for actually a few years now. Now, some people dismissed it as a beta of what Google would eventually become. Some looked at it as just another thing that Google was going to try to do, like Google Wave or something that went out and then all of a sudden didn't work. G Plus, another one, trying to make its own social platform to combat Facebook, and it didn't work, and it turned into being more of a joke than it was functional. It did get absorbed in Google My Business, so it wasn't all that much of a joke afterwards, right? But GA4 is actually a real thing. As of last year, it was announced, as everyone is becoming more painfully aware, that as of July of this year, GA3, as it is, Universal Analytics, will no longer be supported. Doesn't mean it breaks, or doesn't mean it stops. It may break, but it's no longer being supported as a platform for analytics. We have, like a drug dealer, become very dependent upon what we can get. When anybody says, "Oh, we'll give you free analytics," Google did back when they bought Urchin. This goes back 20 plus years. And we're like, "Oh, this is great. This is so much better than hit counters and bulk traffic of views and so forth." It gave us analytics. And so we became dependent upon it. So Google gave us this tool. And in so doing, we gave them access to all the data that the tool provided us and more. That created their economy with their knowledge of those that were visiting our websites and the information that was on our websites and all of the things that we look at reporting from a Universal Analytics point of view. Google uses that now as their modality for selling us targeted marketing, because they have all this information, even more so in the sense that we are getting away from third-party cookie tracking, and only first-party tracking will be allowed. Well, Google Analytics, okay, is first-party tracking. We have given it permission and placed it on our servers, or to track our ability of our websites on our servers, to give us data. So because of that, they can continue to accumulate data, and they're now blocking out all the people they used to compete with that were following along with our website internet adventures, by not allowing them to track as third parties. Third party being that they, without permission, have decided to track what you're doing, compared to first person, which is by giving permission. So with that, here we are, GA4. GA4 is, in lots of ways, an amazing improvement. And that's what we're going to talk about today compared to Universal Analytics, because it opens up a lot of tool functionality that didn't exist in Universal Analytics. Universal Analytics was based on identifiers. It was looking at tracking individual action through group activity. And if it sounds like, well, that sounds like a circular conversation. No, it's looking and saying, here's a group of people, but I want to follow the person in the blue shirt. I want to see what they do. I'm watching everybody, but I want to get the information what the person in the blue shirt's doing. Where did they go? Who did they talk to? What did they do? And from that means that I would then say, okay, if you want to talk to the person that's in the blue shirt, This is what they're interested in. This is what they've done. So you can go, they're probably going to go back over there. So get ahead of them and put an ad in front of them so that they know what you're offering. That ability to look at bulk data and then look at the individual performance was the goal set of UA. To do that, you had to track that person. And it was, you had to follow them. Like, okay, I'm going to watch the blue person. They're going to do this. We're going to do this. Blue shirt person. We're going to do this or this. You had to track them by identifying them. You gave them a tracking ability. Like, here's a cookie. Go. We're going to, this is going to follow. We're going to tag them. Okay, just like we watch whales and so forth. We're going to tag them, see where they go, what they do. GA4 is not that. GA4 is, I got a group of people. I'm watching everything everybody does. Okay. Now, what do you want to know? All right, how many people went to that website? Okay, here's the information. Okay, was there anything of that person did, those people did to that website that they also looked at this website? Okay, so there's another subset of people. Okay, and of those subset of people, I'm really looking for somebody that just likes blue shirts. Oh, there was a blue shirt person, and they went to that website and they went to that site. So now I am identified not because I was tracked individually, but I was watched collectively. I just know that I had to ask about the blue shirt to identify the uniqueness of what the tracking knew about me. That's what GA4 does, in contrast. Rather than assigning and defining one person and then following them along to what they did, you track everything and then decide out of that data what you're looking for. If it still isn't clear, it's a matter of modality. Back in your single days, going out to bars, there was the difference of going out and trying to meet anybody that you're looking for. Anybody, just somebody. And then you begin to start creating criteria. Well, they need to be funny. They need to be intelligent. They need to be tall. They need to be skinny. They need to be large. They need to be into sports, whatever. These are filters. And when you walked into the bar, you looked across the board and you saw what everybody was doing. Now, in the UA world, you pick out the person that you think in your mind already matches who you want to chase down. Oh, wow, that's a very attractive person up at the bar over there. Let me keep an eye on them. And oh, that's another one over there. Let me keep an eye on them. And you're watching to see what they individually do. Instead, like GA4, you walk into a bar and you say, okay, everybody's here. Well, I'm looking for gender. I'm looking for age. I'm looking for interest. I'm looking for appearance. I'm looking for all these things. And in the whole bar, you isolated out those people. That's what GA4 does. It sees everybody, but identifies what you're interested in. That's the difference between Universal Analytics and GA4 from a really bad analogy perspective of how it looks at data. The reason why I'm harping on this particular aspect of it is because now, instead of asking ahead of time who we want demographically, geographically, behaviorally, persona-based, like, oh, I want people that want to be interested in my market, that have a certain income, that do this. We predefine it. That's valuable. On the inversion, okay, we're tracking everything that we're engaging with. Let's start trying to identify who we're tracking. That's what GA4 does. It watches everything. So let's give a real case example of this. Universal Analytics tracks traffic to your website, and it gives you general numbers. Here's all the people that came to your website. Here's all the people that looked at this page. This is how long they stayed. This is how fast they left. General. Okay. In there, you had to do what was called goals and events. I want to track if they hit this button on this page. I want to track if they went to this page before this page and then hit the button. I want them to be tracked if they came from a geographic location and then hit this button. I want to track if they went to this page. I want to track if they looked at this image. You have to go and say, okay, I want to create these events. So I have a different number that says, okay, you asked to track every time that somebody hit this button on this page. Here's that number. Great. So we know they're hitting the number. How many people compared to the number on the page? Okay, 15% of the people went to the page, hit the number. Great. But I don't know anything more about them. Okay, well, now you have to create another goal and event coordination of saying, okay, for me to use that data of hitting that button on that page, I want to know where they were geographically. Okay. I want people that are from a certain geographic location to be tracked. So anybody that comes from a certain geographic location that goes to that page that hits the button, I want that number. And that's how Universal Analytics worked. GA4 makes it so much easier. You don't have to worry about predefining tracking, like, oh, I want to track everybody hits this button. It's already tracking everything that's going on your page, hitting that button, being on that website, clicking on that image, whatever it's doing, whatever anybody's doing on any aspect of your website, GA4 is already watching everything. So now, if I started that same process, okay, so I want to know how many people click that button. Okay, that's the next number. Okay, and it's percentage of the people on the website. Great. It doesn't really tell me much. I want to know where they were from. Okay, you do that, and immediately you have the data. You don't have to wait for that point forward for the data to aggregate like you do in Universal Analytics. Universal Analytics, you had to identify it, and then you had to wait for that event to begin to track from people doing it from the moment you decided to track it onward. GA4 can go backwards in all the data that's already accumulated. That's why GA4 data only stays for 14 months, because it is so much data that's accumulating that it can't keep holding on forever. Not for availability to you. Whether Google keeps it more or stuff is always a question of debate, but the data availability to you only goes back 14 months. And we'll talk about how to resolve that issue for yourself as well. So with UA, you decide what you want to track, and from that moment forward, it'll start tracking it for events and goals. With GA4, you can go and decide that you want to ask about something, and it will go back and show you as far back as you want to about answering your question of how many people hit that button. Well, do you want to know by month, by year, by day, by hour, by minute? Yeah, and it'll tell you. Whoa, that's helpful, but I want to know more. I want to know geographically where they came from. Boom, there's the data. I want to know if they did anything else before they hit that button. Boom, here's the data. That's the benefit of GA4, is that you don't have to predetermine what you're tracking. You can evolve your tracking into the data that you've been already accumulating. Other aspects of this that makes it fascinating. Now, this goes for reporting. Please let me give you the caveat that by doing this, it's by the reporting process. Reports get generated historically the minute that you go over and create the report request. I want to know this, this, and this. Great. It'll go through all your data and tell you what you want to know for as far back as you're wanting to indicate. Audience creation is much like Universal Analytics, as from this point forward, we'll begin generating this audience. Custom audiences, I got to say, is one of the most underutilized aspect of most advertising campaigns. I don't want to call names and poo-poo on agencies that I collaborate in combination with, parallel with, work with as a disconnected third party. I try to be like Switzerland on things. Like, look, I try to solve problems, create audits, make information available. It's for the client to decide what to do with that data. I'm not there to create and fabricate the data that puts me in a positive light and puts their vendors in a negative light, which makes the audit much like a sales pitch. Drives me nuts that people do that. It's like, oh yes, we'll audit your system. It's amazing. We found everything that we can do better is what you need to do, and everything that you're doing terrible is what your vendor seems to be doing. It's amazing. It's a miracle. It's kind of like going to a retail shop, okay, and saying, well, how much for that? And the person saying, well, how much money you got? I have this. Oh, congratulations. 1 cent less than that is exactly the price. It's a miracle. That's what those kind of fake audits do. Well, we'll evaluate your website. We'll evaluate your marketing performance. Amazing. We can be a great solution for you. And all the services we provide are strictly within our service profile. Anything we don't do, we don't recommend. I don't do that. I do it where it's like, look, here's all the things. And here's some great things that should be done for you. I don't do those. With that was a huge intro to this conversation, is the fact that agencies, very few agencies do this well, do it at all, even really. And that's retargeting, proper retargeting, not saturation bombing, where once they create a retargeting profile, they just bejeebers the frequency out of it to the point of nausea, of repeatability. It's like, really? I touched your website once and I can't get you off my Facebook feed. I can't get you off of my website navigation. Every website I go to has your smiley beamy ad on it. It's annoying as heck. And it's not just that I looked at it yesterday. 2 weeks later, I'm still getting hammered by your repetitive targeting. And I say that to AppSumo. They drive me nuts. Every time I go back to AppSumo, and I go there quite a lot, as you know from my podcast, when we talk about tools and tools review, I refer to a lot of stuff that I acquire off of AppSumo, which is a software place that you can buy really great software, startup software, and so forth, or software that's working at incredible lifetime deals. But my traffic to AppSumo, they have yet to create a filter of frequency or even identifying audiences that compare and say, hey, this dude's already our customer. We don't have to hammer them, okay, with repetitive retargeting frequency ads, okay? We can back off on that a little bit. Custom audiences are an amazing tool. Now, we've talked about it on the show from a Facebook perspective and a Google perspective. We're going to take more about the Google perspective right now. And Facebook and custom audiences are basically taking a data set that you have or that you can create and anonymizing it so there's no personal information available for it, so that you're not isolating an individual performance person for it. From that, you can then ask the platform, whether it be Facebook and or Google, hey, taking this data, and you know way more about them than we do. If the identifier is something you recognize in email, that usually is the case, that I can use for targeting advertisement for. Now, that's the production of a custom audience that you provide to the platform. The platforms also create amazing custom audiences. And let's just take this from a current situation right now that you can look at. So let's just take ads, because this will include brand hotels as well. If you're doing a Google ad campaign and you want to create filters that says, I only want this ad to show up in a geographic location, or these geographic locations. I only want it to show up to these criterias that are available in the ad selection process. Maybe it's a time of day, maybe it's a particular demographic, particular interest category, behaviorally, whatever. You've created these filters and you launch the ad campaign. Well, in the running of that ad campaign, Google tracks who engaged with it. Not just the ones that saw it, but the ones that engaged with it. And it creates an audience of that for its own value of trying to use that audience to better filter the exposure of your ads based on the budget you're giving it to people that are asimilar to the engagement. Basically, it's a very logic string process. If I actually click on an ad or spend time on an ad or engage in an ad, then that ad must have had some value to me, which makes me completely valuable compared to the person that didn't engage with the ad. Both of us saw it. I interacted with it, which makes me a better target, not just me individually, but persona me, as to how many other people that Google is aware of that are like me, okay, from what Google knows about me, to see whether or not that creates an audience of people that it can better target. Because the better the ad production is, the more likely I, as the advertiser, are going to spend more money. So it's to the benefit of both of us. Benefit of the platform that I use more of it, spend more with it, and the benefit to me in the sense I generate more from it. With that, those custom audiences get created, and that's usually the end of the road for most ad agencies. They're beating their chest. Look, we did produce this with our ads we made for you, and you paid us to do, and all this stuff. But very little of those ad agencies in hospitality take that data and say, hey, these people interacted with this ad. How else can we use this audience? And one of the better ways of using it is saying, well, you know what? Let's take this audience that we have, and it has to have enough numbers in it, enough engagement with your ad. So it's going to have to run a while, because we're dealing with thousands of people that have to have engaged, 1,000 uniques, to say, okay, I want to create a retargeting campaign. Well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to take this custom audience that's been created for my ad campaigns, and I want to use that as the base of retargeting. These similar people, this similar custom audience, this lookalike audience of this custom audience, I want to target this other ad, which is a different context to the same ad, to them. And I want it to show up, whether it be on Display Network, which is, other websites, ad spaces, and so forth, whether it might be another ad campaign with a different message, A/B testing. But that's where custom audiences really come in, and lookalike audiences like that. They happen with Google Hotel Ads for meta search, which is, I'm going to talk about an example of that here shortly, that is crazy. because it really is a better refined audience. That if they've engaged with any component of what you've already put out there, there's a high likelihood that they're interested in you. They just didn't get the right message, and or it's not the right time. Okay, but it gives you an opportunity to maybe refine that relationship by a progressive funnel. Okay, this or this if this happens, conditional workflow funnel to engage with them. That yieldability increases your conversion value. You get better bang for your buck. So, universal analytics was traditionally done where you have analytics on your website, and the brand people, sorry, we're going to skip you for now. You have your analytics on your site, and you say, okay, I want to make a custom audience out of a series of events and goals. I want to create a group of people, okay, that came to my website, went to my accommodations page, clicked on the booking engine, but didn't book. And that's because you have tracking in your booking engine to know that they didn't buy something. I want this audience to be created. Okay. From that moment forward, it starts generating. When it has enough people, okay, you create an ad campaign that says, okay, these people that went to the accommodations page, went to the booking engine and booked. I want to put this ad in front of them, whether it be display ad, another ad campaign, ad set. Okay. I want them to put that through. You will find that the conversion of those people, depending upon what they were looking for, the conversion is exponentially grown. Now, that's a sloppy kind of throwing a dart at a board targeting. Okay. Here's some better targeting. On our website, we have the little windows for our hotels that say what dates you're interested in. That is trackable data. Even in universal analytics land, this has been years that this is done. And I pointed this out on the show several times. You can track what dates people are looking for. So let's take data that we can get from creating these type of events and goals. I want to track the geography of people that put in dates. I want to track what dates they put in. And I want to track whether they bought something. Great. That is a goalable universal analytics tracking. Okay, so these many people from these geographies went to the booking engine and they look for these date series. It's just raw data. Okay. Throw it over to Google Sheets or Excel or numbers. Let's crunch some pivot tables. What dates were they interested in? And geographically from where? And how many days previous to the dates they were looking for did they actually look for them? Lead time. You get those sources of data, you put in a nice little graphic representation, maybe a map, heat map, and you put over an indicator as what dates you're looking at to see the heat map results. And now all of a sudden you have lead time, level of interest, dates of interest. Huge value, not just to revenue management, but for marketing. If I see that there's a geographic area that are looking at certain dates that we are trying to drive business for at a certain number of days ahead of it, then I know I can target that market more specifically with advertisement about those dates to better yield the money I'm spending in that market. Rather than broadcasting to all the marketing that I could do, I'm targeting the marketing that I need to do for the business I'm trying to generate. It's a very simplistic universal one. There's more that you could do with it. Channel contribution historical to show what channels produced business from that area. Also, conversion value historical, which is what was your conversion of those channels to generate that business from that market. From that, you can determine which channel you should advertise at what amount of money based on the conversion to generate the revenue that you need, transaction revenue based on length of stays to determine the occupancy that you will generate from those campaigns. It's insane to think that marketing could wag the tail of the dog and tell revenue management what they can do to produce occupancy and revenue. That's doable now in Universal Analytics. You can use platforms like Tableau. You could use Data Studio. You could do lots of stuff and use these things right now. GA4 puts it to a whole new level because now, in addition to tracking everything you have organically on your website, in addition to tracking everything you're doing on your ad campaigns, you're able to, at any moment, decide through the analysis that you're able to create historically. Like for me, to make the same scenario I just described to you, and I come up with the ideas like, oh, I need to go and create an event and goal set to track dates. And I need to track geography, and I need to track the date margin between when they looked versus what the dates they were looking for. Great. I'll set that up. I need it to run until I have enough information to know whether I'm barking up the right tree and whether or not I need to then refine what I'm doing to create an ad campaign from it. With GA4, I can go historical anytime. I can say, you know what? I want to go and see who is looking for these dates. And it can reverse the conversation immediately to say, here's all the people that put those dates in. Any one of these dates are inclusive, an inclusive field, okay? From March 1st to March 14th. Anybody that put that those dates landed in an inquiry on these two data inserts, they have the data. Wow, well, that's great. Now let's refine it. I want to know what was the top geographic source of interest. Boom, there it is. What was the top channel that contributed to it? Boom, here it is. Referral traffic to a referral channel. Okay. What was our cost of that? Boom, here it is. And I can begin to create evaluations as to where I think I should put my crosshairs of targeting by just the reporting process. But what the real value of being able to do this in GA4 environment is the ability to create the audiences from this. So now picture what I just said in GA4 world. Now, keep in mind, as I told you at the very beginning, reports can go retroactively back in time the minute you look for that kind of data. Audience building goes just like analytics, event, and goal tracking does. From the moment you've created it, it has to generate that audience. Okay. So now I decide I want to create an audience with the same criteria. I want people that are looking for these dates from these geographies. Okay. At least 90, that are looking at least 90 days out. So a date ending for this custom audience build. That have not booked, that I want them to have looked at the booking window and not have booked. So I know I'm not going and talking to people that already stayed with me. I don't want to put money back on the table, offering them a better deal than what they may have bought, whatever. And that starts generating a custom audience. I can take the custom audience, okay, and say, okay, great, let's do retargeting for them, or let's create a whole different campaign for them based on their geography. Like I want to do a Philly campaign versus a New York campaign, or I want to do a Northeast campaign versus a South campaign, or I want to do a special offer for certain regions, but not others. I want to do different offers for different regions. You can do all of that because of the custom audiences that you create from this. These custom audiences make incredible insight on what you can do for conversions, because now you're feeding the most productive area for crop because you're targeting the people that have already engaged with you for the criteria you've defined in your creation of the custom audience. It is something that is not, as I whined before, utilized by so many agencies. I see so many times when we do audits and evaluations that because the client is unaware of the semantics of operation, of how campaigns can be built, okay, they get happy that a campaign was built. Okay, agency goes in and says, yeah, we have Google ad campaigns running for you, and there's a monthly report, and yeah, produce this much, and blah blah blah. And there's usually excuses about volume versus conversion versus money spent and budget restrictions and all that stuff. But it's pretty generic. They usually do 4 to 8 text type ads. They might even be robust enough that they do click to call ads. They might be robust enough that they have image ads. They might be robust enough that they actually do video ads. Not very often, but it's pretty much generic branding. Maybe some specialty promotions. And what I mean by generic branding is like my name, my brand, surrounded by my destination, surrounded by interest. That's usually the layers of how a campaign gets built. And that's about as far as most of these campaigns get built. Some of them might create retargeting, which will be based on the idea that if they came to your website, and it's a blunt object for them, if they came to your website in any capacity, for any reason, they get thrown into a retargeting hopper. Anybody that touches your website gets put into a custom audience. That custom audience is the tap for saying, okay, this audience, this is what happens. We're going to throw them into retargeting. What's retargeting? Your ad shows that there's a positive amount of money put towards that. Your ad shows up more frequently in front of them. Also, retargeting can open into display networks, which says, okay, we're going to take our image ads, which is highly unlikely that these agencies ever really do, and they really don't, because they're going to charge you $250, $500 per image ad that they create. They're going to go and say, hey, you want some image ads? Well, it's going to cost us about $250 an ad to make it. That's what they usually do. So you're not going to want to drop $1,000 for 4 image ads. You're like, well, is it really going to make a big impact? Oh, it's always a big improvement. We recommend it, but if you don't want to spend the money for us to create it, and I'm like, I'll make the ads. It's part of the ad campaigns. Anyways, there's so many apps and tools that we talk about on the podcast that now you can make ads, visual ads in the drop of a hat. There's templates, there's usabilities, even just going to Canva. But again, we're talking about hoteliers that run hotels, not hoteliers that do advertising marketing. They might not be familiar with Canva or platforms like that. And they don't know that they can make their own to the size that they need and hand it to the agency. Say, okay, don't charge me, but here's my ads, run them. I want you to put this link to it. So when they see the ad, they can go to this link. There's not that interaction as much with them. It's usually a checkbox. Say, okay, we have an ad agency that's handling our ads. Check. This type of retargeting, the blend instrument targeting, is what I see 99.9% of the time. Touch my website, I'll retarget you. Usually with expanded ad campaigns that just show my ads more frequently, or spend more money to make sure you're in front. Or I'll be lazy and just do a kind of retargeting for the Google market where it goes up for easy image ad stuff. That I might see a lot of too. And that's it. No retargeting from a targeted point of view, saying, oh, let's talk about geography. Let's talk about frequency. Let's talk about what they touch. Let's talk about a series, a funnel of engagements that if you figure the engagement with your website, that people just don't come to your website, but they go to your accommodations page to see what the rooms look like. They go to your local events page to see what it is that they would do in that area. They would go back to your photo gallery to see what the images are about your hotel. And then they go to touch your booking engine and they look at dates and interest to go to your booking engine for on your platform. That's a really neat long string. I want people that came to my accommodations page, also that they needed to have gone to my photo gallery, also have needed to gone to my local events page and have put in dates, but didn't book. Sounds like a long string. It's really not. And it will create an audience for you. That seems like a really interested person to your hotel. If they went through that process on your website, it seems that they're at that point where really you just have to give them enough additional incentive, whether it be to retarget them with an additional offer, retarget them with what it is that they may have touched. Like, hey, you looked at the events. We have a wonderful summertime coming up or whatever. Whatever event they touched, that attribution string that they touched can be the criteria for how the ads generate. And you can make dynamic ads like that. These ads are created if this page filter was a criteria of the audience build. If it is, this thing is talking about those events. If they went to our page about a Lollapalooza festival, then let's make sure that our retargeting is about the fact that we are offering a deal for the Lollapalooza festival to stay at our hotel. GA4 is going to become more and more of a dialogue for everybody coming up. We're teaching people it. We're fixing things for it. We're changing people over to it. We're auditing for it as to what they have set up or don't have set up. We have the means of creating shells for it. I'm not trying to do this as a sales pitch. It's just these are things you need to be asking your vendors. Like, how are we set up? We oftentimes get asked to get stepped in with vendors or clients, and they're like, yeah, we've been told we have GA4. That's not true. You have a GA4 code created, but it's not doing anything. It might be accumulating data. That's always a good thing. If at the very least you get out of this conversation today, get GA4 set up and put on your website. So at least it's going to be accumulating some historical data. Because until you turn over to GA4, you don't have GA4 data. Because it's not collecting everything like a GA4 does. It's only collecting what you're telling it to do or basics of UA. And those don't transfer over. Well, that's not technically true. They do, but it's a different conversation. You have to do something about that. So I mentioned earlier on about BigQuery. BigQuery is Google's big data storage space. So you can basically pour everything into and not lose it. It's a forever storage kind of place. It's free up until it's not, which is usually a terabyte, and it's $5 a terabyte. And don't forget that it's about usage as well as the storage. So as you use, the usage of data is measured in quantity as well. So that terabyte cost is there. And storage of data is measured in terabyte size, and that cost is there. So it's not expensive, but it's not zero. The idea that GA4 by default will hold on to 14 months worth of data means that you'll be able to look over year until 2 months into it, and you won't be able to. If you figure that if it started back then, I can look at January to last January, but come March, I won't be able to look at January over January because the old 2022 January doesn't exist anymore for data, unless I store it, which is putting it into BigQuery. If I create a BigQuery account, which costs me $5 up to a terabyte, which depending upon your website's traffic, that's the measuring stick. Then you have the ability to keep the data as long as you would like to pay for the data to be kept. And that's a handy thing, as we know, going back to looking for data, because right now we don't know the right questions to ask until we start engaging with all the variables that we would find interesting as we modify our website, as we modify our data, as we modify the usage of the data. So 6 months from now, you may have a epiphany question that by asking it in GA4 data, having the historical data to go back on to gather all that answer to that amazing epiphany question that you have would be incredibly helpful compared to we can only go back so far because there's no more storage past that. So that's where the BigQuery solution comes into play with it a lot. We recommend to our clients on a regular basis, with the GA4, buy a BigQuery account, have it in there. Obviously, you can purge out if you don't feel there's a need to hold on to it. But like the exact circumstance we're in right now, 2023, we're hoping for what we consider to be normal in comparison to how things were in 2019. Similarities of demand, similarities of market. Kind of that is what we consider as a benchmark of normal, which means 2020, 2021, 2022 are all hybrid variations to what we consider to be what it was normally like, what it is normally like from a 2019 perspective. And we've had this on the show before. So we talk about the need to take aggregate demand over a larger spectrum of time, as far back as 2019 forward, okay, and do a weighted mean average on the data so that we have a balanced perspective of what the data is telling us. This is where we had the admonishment of revenue management platforms and so forth that handle so much of the heavy lifting of math, of projections of forecast, projections of pace and pickup and so forth, that if it's bad data, you're going to get bad indicators. And that's what I see a lot of the platforms creating, is that they chug out bizarre demand levels based on the fact that we had hybrid demand last year, 2021, and no demand in 2020. Historically creates those variant data. Now, they say they've adjusted for them. I would ask how. I know some platforms that their adjustment is really nothing more than a diminished modifier to the yield of the number. They just put a negative number against the formula that says, whatever this formula results in, down it by 30%. Because they considered the 30% as an impact of a particular market segment, and they varied it according to the time dates and so forth. I'm not a prescriber of that. I think it's a sloppy solution. It's a lazy solution to a math recalculation. They should take data history and do the weighted mean average at the very least. Maybe do a diminished value of return based on cyclic value. I'm not going to geek out on math, but just there's ways to do it that are more helpful than things like that. So let's give us another real world example. So in the world of data collection, there's a magical acronym, okay, API, which is the connectivity of your system to another system. There are crossover softwares like Zapier and Pabbly and so forth that can create dissimilar platforms to be able to communicate with each other with common referencing of the same data. And that's what they do. They basically plug two ends together and say, you call it this, and I call it, you say potato, I say potato. But let's agree that they both refer to the same data point, and that data point will be used in connection from what you have to what this needs. That's what the platforms do. And then what do you want me to do with it after that? It does a whole string of events and so forth. These platforms are golden for that, and incredibly helpful. Zapier, Pabbly, and others are lifesavers when it comes to systems that don't talk to each other. But APIs are where a place says, I will give you a identifiable code that we will recognize that will give you access to what we say that code will give you access to for data. In the world of meta search, there are you can use the UI platform in the meta search that you're doing and so forth, which if you're using Cody, bless you, it's so sterilized, neutralized, homogenized. It's just give them money and it's supposed to automate everything. It's sad that it's left to that, but at least you're doing it. Whether it's being done well, I'll always contest that. Other platforms like ones that we use, like Whip, are great because we can manipulate so much about what we do, but it provides a tremendous amount of interesting data that doesn't often get put in front of the right people. And that is pace and trends. You can see what days of the week the engagements for Meta are there. You can see what days of interest, 1 day stays, 2 days stay, 3 days stay, 4 days stays, on and on, all up to 30-day stays. You also have data that says how far ahead they were booking. Like, okay, I'm looking on January 1st, but I booked July. Whoa. Okay. Break down to their confirmation number and amount of revenue that they generated, the duration of their stays, how many nights they stayed, and so forth. Tremendous amount of information. If you were able to extract it, and you can, you put it into really nice Excel sheets, number sheets, or Google Sheets, and create some really neat correlations. Pace and trend are the biggest ones I use them for. But when you combine that to API connectivity to Google, where you say, I'm going to take the data directly from the platform's engagement for all the platforms it runs outside of Google Hotel Ads, because it does run that one too, but Google has that data already. But the TripAdvisors, the WeGos, the Bings, everything else, pull that data in with the data that Google already has about itself. You get some amazing correlations. Because here, think of it this way. Google, GA4 in particular, if you connect your AdWords account to your web analytics account, that means that GA4 is pulling all of the engagement with your paid campaigns in Google, all of your engagements with your website, and now via APIs, all of the engagement data associated with those platforms as well. So now I can see what Meta produced, but also if there was an engagement related to it on my website. Like, did that also involve my website before the decision was made? Because Meta search is a platform choice, channel choice. Sorry. And also too with paid campaigns, was there what my attribution is at? It's fascinating to see this correlation of data, because let me give you a great example of it. We're going through a process of talking about the impact of diminishing a budget for meta search during a time where the demand is already there. So the causation is, why should we spend money advertising on meta search when we already have the demand to yield with? We don't need more demand. We're probably going to sell it most weekends. We're going to be hard to, have, during the week we might sell out as well, but not completely, whatever. Why advertise? And how many times you get asked this question? We're doing so well for business right now. Why advertise? Well, I'm going to keep it a meta search for right now. The impact of your advertising now is not about booking now for a necessarily an in the month for the month stay. There's fluctuations to this. Okay. Certain times of year, it is very true that most of it, and I say most being beyond 70%, can be in the month for the month. It's a very targeted, and I'd say this with the caveat, usually 2 times of the year that it happens for those that benefit from these types of years: spring break in March, April, depending on how long it lasts, and summertime. Those are the 2 big compressions of the usage of meta search. It's what are rates and dates available for the destination I'm going to. It's an easy way to look at it, and the ability to be there for people so that your direct channel is represented. Because, and I love this, taking this from Dean, who's works with me to do the meta search, Dean Schmidt, Basecamp Meta, he said this phrase, and I love it: just by shutting off your meta search campaigns does not shut you off from meta search. And that means, just like any advertising campaign, you stop paying for you to be there doesn't mean there's a hole that says this is where they were, stay tuned. Somebody else fills that hole. Most of the time in meta search, the people that fill that hole is OTAs. So I'll use an example of a conversation I had with my clients. Overall, if we're doing 10 to 1, say it's costing them $2,000 a month, and they're getting 10 to 1. Okay, so they're making $20,000. We're driving them directly to their channel. The advertising is saying that here is the XYZ hotel, click, and it goes right to their website. So there's a whole additional value of life of value, the engagement of getting their email, creating other channels of communication with them, all the analytics that goes because they went to your site, your booking engine, all the stuff we talked about with GA4 happens because they went to your website. Shutting that off, now the OTA is in that space, and they charge you a 20% commission. So it still costs you, okay, what is that, $4,000 to get the same business. And the bad part is you don't get any of the benefit of them coming to your website. You don't get any of the benefit of collaborating with them. You now are in the process of trying to convert them from their channel that they engage with OTAs to you. You're going through all the process of email acquisitions, communications and so forth to try to solicit them, say, hey, we'd love to get you over to direct channel and do this. You have all this extra work to do the same thing that you could have done had you just kept a budget that's half the cost of what you had to pay in commissions. Here's where the rub is. The expenditure to spend in metasearch is a budget line amount. The ability to pay for a commission is an open-ended dialogue. There's no budget that says we're only going to pay this much in commissions and then we're going to stop. Nope. You're going to pay because the argument is, well, we only pay for what we produce. Duh. What do you think the paying of $2,000 was at a 10-to-1? You got the value of it. You're paying to get that back. So the logic doesn't hold. The water doesn't hold. The argument doesn't hold. But most importantly, the contention of in the month for the month doesn't hold. When I said that the majority of your business in the month for the month is your peak, 70% and up, I've never seen it beyond 80. There is always an impact outside of 30 days that a booking happens. Some months, it's as low of in the month for the month as 30%, or actually less than that, 22, 25%. I've seen it that low too. And all the rest of it that's booked through the metasearch channel at that wonderful 10-to-1 or 8-to-1 or 20-to-1 or whatever it is outside of the 30-day window. And if it's done correctly and you have your rate strategy correctly, that you're not just leaving banked high rates for post 120 days out, so all they're seeing is rack rates, so they immediately disclude you because, well, I'll wait until it gets closer to the dates and see what they bring those rates down to. If you play with the strategy of offer your rate that you want, knowing to build base business so you can compress it as the demand increases, revenue management 101, then maybe having that out of metasearch means that, as it has, and I see the numbers to do this, the ability to see that you're booking for dates out 6, 8, 9 months, 12 months out that are happening now. So in this argument of January, only 30% was actually in the month for the month. 70% was past the end of the month for the month. Of that, 64% of it was for the month of February. So you're actually impacting February bookings in January. So the argument of, oh, we're really busy in January, we shouldn't be advertising, you're affecting February. If you stop, you're demanding that usage of metasearch now goes to OTAs. So whatever they're booking through the metasearch, which doesn't stop because you stopped your campaigns, okay, is now being fed through an OTA, and you're going to pay 20% commission or 18% commission. Whatever it is still commission. And that's a higher commission than what you're paying on a 10-to-1 ratio because nobody's paying 10% commission for OTAs. So you're impacting that. That conversation goes to your paid campaigns as well. And the other added to the argument is, if you're the belle of the ball, so to speak, where you're in high demand, there's a large amount of traffic. You look at your website, you see a peak in traffic, right? Hopefully your conversion values go up because of that, because as people are looking, they're booking, okay? But the reality is you are of high interest. People want to come to your market. While you're being paid attention, it's your 15 minutes of fame, right? Put yourself in front of them of all the things they should consider, because they're going to look and they're going to see either they don't like your rate, or you don't have the inventory that they want, or you have a condition of booking that they don't want to have, like you can only check in on Fridays for the weekend or whatever it is. And they may not do it because you can yield this current rate range, okay, that they're most interested you in because of the demand, but sell them on something else. Sell them on the times that you're not the belle of the ball and that it is harder to get people to come to your doorstep, and give them incentives like, hey, not finding what you're looking for? This is retargeting on your site, pop-ups and changeovers that you can create, or content you can add into your content. It says, if you're looking to go over and enjoy our place, but maybe when there's less crowds, we have amazing April offers. Here they are. Here's the link. You're only getting this because you came to our website, and lucky you, we want to make sure that you know all the opportunities with us. There's so much marketing strategy to that. Okay. But going back to the API interface with metasearch, knowing your pace and trend, knowing what you're influencing by what you're advertising in front of now, knows what content you need to have. Like we saw, as in the case of this, that 64% of the business that was being booked in January is actually out of interest in February. Well, we already know there's certain hotspot dates in February that are of demand for this particular property. We don't need to feature those. Okay, so we can actually modify our bid structures to be less on the inventory available for those days, so we don't show up as often, is what I'm saying, for those dates, because we don't have much to sell for them. But we amplify our bid strategy for the dates that we don't have the same demand level for, to even out the demand for the entire month. Tell me you're having that conversation with your vendors. You're not. Very few people are. Very few people are talking to their vendors about it. What they're usually doing with their vendors that they're dealing with is a forensic report 30 days backwards saying, this is what your accounts did these past 30 days. This is how much money you made. This is how much you spend. It's not actionable data because you're talking about it in the past tense. And as much as you may have done something in January that impacted February, January is over. So all you can do is what you can do in February for February business, which keeps kind of your toes to the fire, the gun to your head, whatever way you want to analogize it. And that is, you have to be reactive. You're not proactive at that point. You're looking to fight like everybody else. For that person that's at that ZMOT, that moment of transaction, that says, okay, this is the person that's going to buy something in our market. Let's all fight and see how much money I can spend to make sure I show up more often in front of them or ahead of you or whatever it is. That's the melee pit that most advertising agencies put you in because they don't have the methodology of looking earlier and seeding the engagement with retargeting because of what they can pull out of GA4, seeding the engagement based on what impact they have on the advertising they have then for what future tense is, so they can create content and offers and opportunities for the future tense. And you're left with the fact of fighting over the scraps that are available in the month for the month because that's the highest competitiveness that you have in your marketing strategy. And they're not diversifying their ads. They're not looking at other channels of opportunities to get in front of guests. They're not targeting their people. They're not looking for ways to create audiences that better define the conversion value of those audiences. They just don't do it. I'm not saying nobody does it. I'm sure there's great agencies out there that do it. We're one of them. There's others. But they're a little harder to find in contrast to so many agencies that don't do this. It's more the exception. Matter of fact, it is the exception and unfortunately not the rule. So many agencies don't do this correctly. You need to be, if you're the client, the one that's vigilant, that's in front of them asking these questions. How are we dispersing the demand in our market for the audiences that are paying attention to us? How do we get in front of those audiences in a more precise way so we're only talking to the people that are most interested in what we're talking about for those dates that are opportunistic, and to leverage the demand that you have to your market to yield it to all the other times that you're not the demand market, and that it is like summertime in Florida. Okay. Yes. People come here because it's a place to go to for summertime, but there's so many other areas that people go to and enjoy because the temperate weather. Summertime's a harder sell for, especially when you're in the throes of late July, early August, because school's going to be coming back in. You can't really do duration stays. Yes. You've already seen the house and mouse already. So that's not a thing. It's more of a provocation of offering opportunities for people to take advantage of so that they do decide this is probably pretty cool. We get to not have to deal with the prices of the high demands. We don't have to deal with the crowds of the high demands. We may not have to deal with the certain demographics of with or without kids or whatever that we would normally have to face, because there's a whole cycle of people post school. There's a whole targeting towards people that don't have children, that once the children go back to school, that's when they do their travel. These are the semantics associated with your marketing strategy through the course of the year. And yes, I'm pounding on a podium and standing on a soapbox when I say this, which goes back to our budgeting strategy discussion we had last year. So rather than continue to pontificate, let me just say that GA4 is an incredibly valuable and will soon be discovered by everybody necessary understanding tool as we get more and more to where we have to be using it as of July 4th this year in particular. July 4th, but July of this year in particular. The faster you can understand its utilization, the faster you can see the value potential, the faster you have it already in place to be gathering the data that you need to be gathering, the sooner you can start utilizing the leveraging values of that data. The more you connect to it, the more insights you get to it, the more you can strategize your marketing for it and with it. So there you have it. Again, my apologies for the lateness in the startup of the show, and for those that had to jump between on certain links. But if you're watching me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch, thank you for your patience while we got things turned back on. For those catching us on TV, on the hospitality channel, which is on Roku, Google, Amazon, Apple, thank you for waiting for us to get it started and kicked on to as well. Again, my name is Loren Gray. If you're interested in knowing more about us, hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com is our website. If you want to watch this show or any reruns like in I Love Lucy or in our podcast recast, you can go to hospitalitychannel.tv. They're in forever replay there. You can search by content. You can search by date. And if you want to follow us or join us on our hospitality club, which is for journeymen and up, it's not beginners. I'm not teaching hospitality marketing from basic level, what CPC stands for. There's other people that do that. A lot of them, ton of them. This is for people that are doing the business and want to do better in the business. Is Hospitality Club is actually, you put your email in the little blank spot. That's all it is. I send you a quiz. If you get 9 out of the 10 questions right, we'll send you an invitation to our organization, Hospitality Club. Right now, it's free. This year, we're planning on monetizing it as time goes on, based on when we finally get the group and the culture and the community that we want, that they see the value proposition in having weekly discussions on granular solutions to their marketing strategies. Being able to go ask other people, peer level people, questions of how do you do these things and how do you create multifaceted carousel ads with variant on demographics per carousel, blah, 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 blah. That's what this is for. This isn't about basic terminology, buzzword understanding, kind of stuff. So for that, Hospitality Club, okay, hospitalitymarketing.club is the actual domain. Reruns, hospitalitychannel.tv. If you want to sign up for our TV channel, which is like a Netflix pay-per-view gateway, that's at talktravel.tv. It's also on mobile on Apple and iOS. Just look for Hospitality Channel. It's an app. You'll be able to watch the live show always every week free. You don't have to pay to get in to see the live show. And for all of that, the TV channel is all about hospitality as an industry. It's not about like a food channel or a travel channel. It's about the hospitality industry, all facets of it: restaurants, hotels, golf, everything else. It's all in there. So again, Loren Gray, thank you for the privilege of your time. We will recast this as we always do. We're in 39 countries, tens of thousands of watchers, which is awesome. We will recast this show at 11:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, Sydney, Australian time. Also 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, London, UK time. So it makes it a little easier for some people. I know a lot of people just tend to listen to the show. You don't have to keep seeing me staring here and waving my hands and pontificating all the time. But when we have guest co-hosts, it's always fun to be able to look at them and how they interact. So we appreciate everybody for that. And until next week, show number 390 next week. My name is Loren Gray, and thank you for the privilege of your time. And I look forward to talking to you next week.